Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Nuni Vijana Vallabha Girivardhari Vijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Shodanandana Brachachana Randana Yashodanandana Brachachana Randana Nuni Yashodanandana Brachachana Randana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad. Isi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Du machst jetzt nach ihm, als vergisst.
Also wenn Devashri Radhika gestern eine Szene hat, was mir gesagt worden ist, hat niemand das 9 gemacht. Weil die letzte Klasse war 8 gewesen. Darum wäre es natürlich um das 9. Aber ich weiß nicht.
Because they wrote 10 and then they said 9 they did on Saturday.
And then you did 10, no?
Yes.
So it would be 11 if we follow the sequence.
But 9 has been done.
That's what Yamuna Kiri Mataji said, that she did.
She did 9.
But tomorrow,
We left out 8.
but tomorrow is written 12. No, tomorrow is written on the schedule is
Sorry, I'm really confused.
Do you have your phone? Somebody has to say.
No. Tomorrow is 11.
Tomorrow is 12, today is supposed to be...
No.
No, tomorrow is 11.
Right. Tomorrow is 11. So that's why today is 10. Yeah. Today is 10, but 10 we already did.
Yes, because on Saturday Yamuna Kiri Mataji did 9. So Monday, Tuesday we did 10, so today we are supposed to do 11.
No, tomorrow we have 11, otherwise we have to change the schedule. But I will just speak about there's different truths, different ways to approach the absolute truth. But what we do, I will just repeat 9 and 10, and we just, every speaker has a different approach, doesn't matter. We speak about Puranjana and about reincarnation. So, we do again 9 and 10. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 25, entitled The Characteristic of King Puranjana. And we read texts 9 and 10. And I will and I read part of the purport. Maybe part of some of the purport. Okay. Atra te katayishye mum Itihasam Puratanam Puranjanasya Charitam Nibbodha Gadato Mama Atra te katayishye mum Ittihasam Puratanam
Itihasam Puratanam
Puranjanasya Charitam Nibodha Gadato Mama
Nibodha Gadato Mama Atra Katayishemum Atrate Katayishemum Ittihasam Puratanam
Ittihasam Puratanam
Puranjanasya Charitam
Puranjanasya Charitam
Nibodha Gadato Mama
Nibodha Gadato Mama
Atrate Katyayeshemum Atrate Katyayeshemum Itihasam Puratanam
Itihasam Puratanam
Puranjanasya Charitam
Puranjanasya Charitam
Nibodha Gadato Mama
Nibodha Gadato Mama Vaishnavis Atrate Katayishemum Itihasa Puratanam
Puranjanasya Charitam Nibodha Gadato Mama
Atra herewith te unto you Kata Ishai I shall speak Amum on this subject matter Ittihasanam history Puratanam very old Puranjana Sya in the matter of Puranjana Charitam his character Nibodha try to understand Gadata Mama while I'm speaking. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. This connection I wish to narrate an old history connected with the character of a king called Puranjana. Please try to hear me with great attention. So I read part of the purport. The great sage Narada Muni turned toward another topic, the history of King Puranjana. This is nothing but the history of King Pranichi Parishat told in a different way. In other words, this is an allegorical presentation. The word Purana Shana means one who enjoys in a body. This is clearly explained in the next few chapters, because a person entangled in material activities wants to hear stories of material activities. Narada Muni turned to the topics of King Puranjana, who is none other than King Prachini Parishat. And then Prabhupada makes the point that Narada Muni is not directly rejecting the Vedas as Lord Buddha did, but he neglects the idea of karma kandya. I read from the next paragraph. Foolish person accept difficult path of karma kanda for the sake of sense enjoyment, and those who are too much attached to sense enjoyment are called mudha, rascals. It is very difficult for a mudha to understand the ultimate goal of life. In the propagation of Krishna consciousness movement, we actually see that many people are not attracted because they are mudha, engaged in fruitive activities. It is said, Upadhesho hi murkannam prakopaya na ishantaye. If good instructions are given to foolish rascals, he simply becomes angry and turns against the instructions instead of taking advantage of them. Because Narada Muni knew this very well, he indirectly instructed the king by giving him history of his entire life. In order to wear a gold or diamond nose pin or an earring, one has to pierce the ear or nose. Such pain endured for the sake of sense gratification is endured on a path of karma kanda, the path of fruitive activity. If one wishes to enjoy something in the future, he has to endure trouble in the present. Interesting example. And then at the end of the purport, the Prabhupada again makes the point that the word itihasam, history in Puratanam, means old. And Prabhupada makes the point that foolish materialistic scientists have manufactured their own theories of evolution, which are simply concerned with the material body, but actually this is not the real evolution. The real evolution is the history of the living entity who is Puranjana, living within the body. Sri Narada Muni will explain this evolutionary theory in a different way for the understanding of the sane person. So those who are sane, they get the true theory of evolution. So that's the essence of text 9, and then we read text 10, and then we are ready for text 11 tomorrow. We are well prepared for text 11. Text 10. Asit Puranjano nama Raja Rajan Bricha Charanav Tasya Vijigyatanam Sati Saka Vigyana Chestita. My dear king, once in the past lived a king named Puranjana, who was celebrated for his great activities. He had a friend named Avigyata, the unknown one. No one could understand the activities of Avigyata. And Prabhupada says in the purport here, every living entity is Puranjana. The word Puram means within this body, within this form, and Jana means living entity. Thus, everyone is Puranjana. Every living entity is supposed to be the king of his body because the living entity is given full freedom to use his body as he likes. He usually engages his body for sense gratification because one who is in the bodily conception of life feels that the ultimate goal of life is to serve the senses. This is the process of karma kanda. One who has no inner knowledge, who does not know that he is actually the spirit soul living within the body, who is simply enamored by the direction of the senses, is called a materialist. A materialistic person interested in sense gratification can be called a Puranjana. Because such a materialistic person utilizes his senses according to his whims, he may also be called a king. An irresponsible king takes the royal position to be his personal property and misuses his treasury for sense gratification. Okay, so I'll leave it with that, as we already read both purports. Om Jnanatimidandasya Ginanjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Paritanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna So, as we yesterday heard in the class also, foolish people are not able to accept good instructions, right? And the story of Puranjana, or the living entity that is within the body, it is a very old story. And we are all Puranjana, as we heard also yesterday, and we all already going through a very old story. And the problem is that we are still attached to our story and to our life, and that's why we are not able to accept instructions that are given to us. And Devashi Radhika also yesterday quoted this shloka. I will repeat it again and read the instruction of Prahlad. Matirna Krishne parata svatova mito bibhatyeta griyavrasattanam adhanta gopir vishatam tamishram puna punaschar vitachar navanam. Prahlad Maharaj replied, because of their uncontrolled senses, persons too addicted to materialistic life make progress toward hellish condition and repeatedly chew that which has already been chewed. Their inclination toward Krishna are never aroused either by the instruction of others, by their own efforts or by a combination of both. It's interesting how Prabhupada says they make progress toward hellish condition. Like, that's what Prabhupada often said, the whole Western or the modern civilization, we are very progressive and making a lot of progress. But the question is, in which direction do we make progress? And Prabhupada clearly says we make a progression towards hell. Like by sense gratification, by neglecting the laws of the Lord, by masses, people are preparing themselves for more suffering. That's basically what's going on. And if you try to instruct them, they will not be able to listen, either by their own efforts nor by instructions of others. They are just bewildered, and they are chewing that which has already been chewed. And that means it's a very old story. And it's the same story of trying to find pleasure in the material world. The attachment to the body, the misidentification with the body. I'm this body, and the only way I can find happiness is by giving pleasure to this body, and for that I have to, control my environment, and I have to exploit my environment, I have to find pleasure, and if I just can gratify my body, I will be happy. And that old story we have been repeating since time immemorial, life after life. And if someone comes and tells you, no, it's not about you, it's about Krishna, then they will become angry. And Prabhupada also speaks about the evolutionary theory that this actually, Darwin, Prabhupada explains in several lectures that actually Darwin has stolen it from the Vedas. It's a very revolutionary statement by Prabhupada. Everyone knows Darwin, everyone knows the evolutionary, the theory, how life developed, and then how humans basically came from the monkeys and all that. And it's this is what is taught in schools, and it's, although actually it's just a theory, like it's never really proven, but still it is, and that's why Prabhupada calls scientists rascals, because they don't really have any evidence or proof, but they just speculate, just present a theory, and no one else comes up with something better. It's accepted as the absolute truth, But Prabhupada explains that actually the concept of that there is different forms of life, and that there is a progression of life, that's already there in the Padma Purana. But it's not that the body is developing, but it's the soul or the consciousness which is developing, right? And then we have this, Prabhupada many times quoted this shloka, Jalaja Nava Lakshani Stavara Laksha Vimshati, and so on. There are 900,000 species living in the water, right? Fishes and so on. Then 2 million non-moving living entities, Stavara, trees and plants. Then 1,100,000 species of insects and reptiles, 1 million species of birds, and then 3 million beasts, like Säugetiere, different animals, and then 400,000 species of human life. And in this way there is a hierarchy, or like a progression of the consciousness, the soul, who goes through these different species of life, finally attaining a human form of life. And it's interesting, human form of life, sometimes also there is a question, what does it mean, human form of life? I just saw on the yesterday someone sent an email on the free forum of the PAMHO, a discussion about human species, what does it mean? And sometimes we think maybe it means, okay, there is the Indians, there's the Brazilian people, and there is the Chinese, yellowish and like this, and then there's the black people, and then there's the Swiss people, and these different species, right? But how is there 400,000 of them? Like, okay, if you calculate, okay, there is the Thurgauer and the St. Galler and the Luzerner, those from Munich and those from Berlin, and those from California and those from Texas. Maybe you get to 400,000. Every village, different people, different species. But there is explanation that actually, of course, there is different explanation. That's why sometimes it's a bit controversial. But as far I understood and how I heard it from my spiritual teachers, is that 400,000 species means it's a matter of consciousness, right? Because the lowest consciousness are the living entities in the water, and then we have the plants, which have even more consciousness in a way. It's interesting. and then the reptiles and insects and beasts, and then human. That means it's the elevation of consciousness. And this 400,000 human consciousness means everyone who is more aware than animals, and that includes, all the different beings. Like we have the description of the Rakshasas and the demons and the Devas and the what is the other names? The Kinaras and Kimpurashas and the Yakshas and all these living entities. And sometimes they don't look exactly like humans. Like in the Ramayana, we have a description of the Rakshasas who not protected, but looked over Sita, so nobody can steal her. And there's a description how some of them had the head of a fox, but human body, but the head of a fox, or head of Wasserbüffel, how you say, buffalo head, and some had a human head, but they had the legs of a horse, and all kind of mixture between animal and human. But when we speak of 400,000 species, these creatures also belong to the human, because they also have a higher consciousness. They also understand more. And it's also then mentioned here. There is this Bhagavad Gita shloka in the 15th chapter, that the living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped around the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. So according to the consciousness, we have a certain body. And if the consciousness is a bit higher, then that's, higher in the sense, more conscious, then it's part of the 400,000 species. And if it's lower, then it goes down to the other species. That's how I understood it. But that's what Prabhupada emphasizes, that's and as like a sane person will understand that this is how evolution takes place. And it's not the bodies that develop, but it's the soul who goes through these bodies. Now, this whole understanding of reincarnation, of course, it's quite, it's a very different approach to life if I think that there is only one life or there is reincarnation, right? It's a completely different approach to life. And that's what Prabhupada was always so much shocked, how in the West people just don't understand this point. When you listen to his lecture, he always makes the point, what is the difficulty, like, how can people not understand this? And even when he went to Moscow to speak to the professor, what's the name? Kotovsky, Professor Kotovsky. Prabhupada mentioned him so many times. Kotovsky. No, he's a great professor at the university. But he told Prabhupada frankly, no, there is no life after death, it's just finished. Whereas in India, any simple villager, farmer, he knows, there is life after death and there is reincarnation, and I've been living. Every simple person knows. And that shows the glory of Bharatvarsha, it shows the glory of India. People just have a much higher consciousness. When it comes to spirituality, when it comes to understanding the truth, reality, the whole, just in the West we are so much in ignorance about this. And also, of course, the consequence, because to think that there is only one life is so limited. Like the example is given, if you look out of the window and you see a bird flying by, right? So you just see the bird only for a short moment, like and then but to think that the bird has not existed before and to think that the bird will not exist after, it's really foolish, right? We just have we have seen the bird for a short moment, but to think that didn't exist before and didn't after, it's very foolish. So similarly, we just see that we see this life, and we think that's all, but that's a very foolish conclusion. Naturally, there was something before, and will something be after, will be there. And of course, if you think that there's only one life, that means I have nothing to do with what happened in the past, and I have nothing to do with what happened in the future. I'm just being here. So I just want to take advantage and enjoy life and destroy the environment and exploit the world. And because after me, was sagt man nach mir die Sinnflut? Not like, I don't know in English, but no, I don't care what happened after me, because I live this life and I enjoy, and then afterwards anyway finish. So what do I care about the planet Earth? You know? So it has very concrete consequences, the way I see the world in this regard. Now, but for us as devotees, when we hear about this kind of philosophy, then we speak about personal application, right? That we personally apply this knowledge. So we have heard that there is something like reincarnation from the first day, right? First time we come to the Sunday program, to the class, and we hear we are not a body, and we have been, traveling, transmigrating from one body to the next. We have heard that, right? For many years we have heard. But how much have we realized that? How much have we really understood? Or if we really would have understood, what would be the consequences? I mean, I guarantee you, if we really would understand what it means, we would live a completely different life. Because it's quite fascinating. I mean, it's very fascinating, isn't it? That Puranjana, we're living in this body trying to enjoy, and it's a very old story. It means we are very old. Like the other day, I think on Saturday and Friday, we heard about the old soul, right? In the New Age, they speak about, I think you're a very old soul. And then the ego feels like, yes, I'm a very old soul. First of all, the soul is eternal. There is no question of beginning and end. And what means all? We are all old in the sense that we all, since time immemorial, we are wandering in the cycle of birth and death, right? But the problem is some are old and wise, and some are old and still foolish. and most of us are still old and foolish. That's the problem. And the process of Krishna consciousness is meant that we become wise, right? And in general, of course, those who take to Krishna consciousness, they already have some wisdom, that they have some intelligence. That's why they realize, hey, wait a minute, something is wrong here. There is this cartoon. You see two Buddhist monks, and one looks very tired, and the other is asking, "What's wrong with you? Why are you so tired?" And the other one says, this repeated birth and death, it's I'm really tired of it. I'm really tired of this. Again, pampers, and then again going to school, and again and again and again. I'm so tired. But that realization needs to come. That you say, enough is enough. This is really, I've seen it. But how much has that realization entered in our heart? That's the question. Because we still have so many hopes in this world to find pleasure in this world. But if you really have understood, then, let's finish our business and go back home, back to Godhead. That was Prabhupada's program, right? And he always encouraged us to develop that mood, that, just this lifetime. Give this lifetime to Krishna, and then go back to Godhead. And I don't know, I personally, in my spiritual life, I had a few key realization, as I said. If I really would have realized, I would live differently. But still, sometimes you get a little glimpse or some ideas. And the first time, I think, it was, I was at the Psi-Messe in Basel. You know the Psi-Messe? This is like an esoteric New Age congress. People come together, and then you have all these booths, these tables, with this medium and that astrologer, and there is this aura photographer, You can take a picture and then you can see your aura. And the guy who takes the picture, of course, he has a picture of himself, and this was completely white. You know. Everyone else was color. It was completely white aura. He's like fully saintly. And then you have this crystal stone, and then you give 10 francs, and they put something in a computer and then tell you who you were in the lost life. And of course, everyone wants to be, you know, I don't know, in my lost life I was Elvis Presley, or I was Cleopatra, you know, I was Cleopatra in my lost life. Everyone wants to be something very special. Because the present life is so boring, if at least they can think that they were something special previously, then gives them some good feeling. But yeah, and then once I listened to a lecture by Raja Vidya, Ronald Sörer. He made the point. The whole idea of you know, understanding reincarnation, it has nothing to do with the fascination of who I was in my lost life, but it's about realizing that this life is just another role that I play. That's the point, you know. We have been, you know, in every birth we have been playing a different role, and each time it was just a different role, and even this time it's also just another role. And that concept, it's quite mind-blowing, you know. We are looking into the mirror and I think, no, I'm Christoph Trutmann, 46 years old, and I'm also known as Krishna Prema, and I'm a brahmachari, and this is my, you know, identification. But that's, you know, that's not reality, not at all. It's just another role. Of course, it's a nice role. In a sense, it's much closer to reality than most probably all the other roles I played in many lifetimes. But still, it's just another role, and it's not my true self. And another time, you know Damodar. He's an artist, and he plays pantomime. You say pantomime? Pantomime. And he's a devotee. Sometimes on festivals he played Reincarnation, and the way he did, you know, like very powerful music, and then the way he plays, I mean, you have to see this, you know, like afterwards you really look, you think like, oh my God, I also went through reincarnation, you know, I went through it myself, you know, that realization, if you see it, it's like, it's so powerful, you know, like, then he plays like a baby, like crying, and then a teenager, and then an old man, and then dying, and then like a bird, you know, like flying, and then all different. He plays all different animals and all different, and he plays it very like, and you realize, my God, you know, I was a bird at one point, you know, I was a donkey at one point, I was an elephant, you know, imagine, you know, how much have you realized that we have gone through all these different species, and what does it mean? And the crazy thing is, you know, once you're in a dog body, by the law of nature, you are forced to act like a dog. There is you don't have any freedom, you know. You can woof woof, and you can, you know, pass urine to the next tree and run after the female dog, but that's what you can do. You can't do anything else. It's very limited. And we have gone through this for, you know, innumerable times. We have gone through so many species. But the most impressive experience that I had was in South India when I went to the palm leaf library. I told it many times, but you know, 5,000 years ago, some rishis, they saw the future, and they wrote down the life of some individuals. Not of all, no, only those who actually will go to the library, and that they already also could see. They could see who in the future will go to the library, and their lives they wrote down. And you go there, and on ancient leaves, in the ancient language, then your life is written. And you can go there, and then they will read your life. And of course, they read who you were in your past lives, and they read what you did so far, and then they read what you will do in the future. And of course, that's also a controversial thing, and it's a different topic on how much this is advisable to do that. You know, like how much do you want to know about your past and your future? Well, actually, there is this purport that Prabhupada says that every sane person wants to know about his past and future. Prabhupada makes such a statement that, where did I came from, where do I go? I mean, it's actually good to have some understanding. But then you need to know how to deal with it. That's the thing, like, especially if they tell you things about the future, you need to know how do I deal with that. Jai Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Shishi Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. But regardless what they told me, and I will not tell who I was in the who I was in the past and what will I do in the future. I mean, yeah, there lies the fascination. Come on, tell. I will tell you one thing. The thing, at least 3-4 things that they told, because this is 12 years back now, and 3 or 4 things actually happened. They told, and it actually happened. So of course that gives me confidence that what they told me in the future will also be true, right? Anyhow, but what's the main point is that I went to 2 different libraries, and after they said similar things. But the main consequence from this visit was that realization that I had different lives. I had many different lives. And I'm old in the sense of we always think in terms of this life, right? I'm so and so old, and I did this education, and this was my upbringing. That's why this is who I am. No, we are a soul that has been gone through so many different experiences. That means in our subconsciousness, in our mind, all the experiences of all the lives are stored, and all these experiences have made us who we are, right? So we can look back to history of unlimited lives and experiences that are our experiences, and from these experiences we can take the next steps. And that now in this life, it might be our last life. And the other day we spoke about this. I mean, that's amazing if you think about that we had unlimited lives before, and this might be the last life. And so the consequences of this. So what's the consequences if you really understand all of that? I mean, you already said it, but. Yeah, you just surrender to Krishna. You really become serious in spiritual life, because I mean, what else to do? There's no other business. There's actually no other business than to cultivate Krishna consciousness. Of course, we still, according to our nature and our desires, and I want to do this in life, I want to do that and this and so. But actually, from the absolute point of view, there is nothing else to do than to develop our Krishna consciousness. There is really nothing else. And then because we are conditioned with our nature, then we also have maybe some material desires, but then we should really dovetail them with Krishna consciousness. No, then okay, we have certain nature, then we try to engage that in Krishna consciousness, but with the main focus to develop our relationship with Krishna. Because everything else really doesn't make any sense. Once when I was new in Krishna consciousness, a brahmachari told me one analogy. And sorry, that's a little bit the brahmachari meditation. I apologize for that. But he said, imagine you're in a football stadium. How many people are there? Like in Hallenstadion, I think about 15,000 fit in. But that's for events, and then a football stadium, maybe 30, 40,000 people. Let's say 40,000 people in a football stadium. And you're standing on a stage, and then you see this 40,000 people. And these are the 40,000 women. Or we can also say 40,000 men if you're a woman. So these are the 40,000 partners from your previous lives. And you still didn't got enough? That's like the meditation. You still want to try it again? How many times you want to try it? How many times you want to find happiness in that kind of way to find happiness? It's not the way to really find happiness. That's what we heard yesterday. That the only relationship that we actually have is the relation with Krishna. It's the only eternal, perfect and loving relationship is that with Krishna. But still, in every life we're chewing again the chewed, and we always again divert our attention to so many other things, other persons, and forget our eternal relationship. And of course, again, we are conditioned. We have our nature. If we have a partner and we, practice Krishna consciousness together, then of course that can be very helpful. There's nothing against that. Confirmed. There's nothing against that, and that's wonderful. Basically, as a team, you help each other, and for most of us, that's very good to have to do it in a team. But still, the deeper realization needs to be there. That these relationships are very, very temporary, really very temporary, and they are not the true thing. The true thing is our relationship with Krishna. And we spoke, or yesterday we heard about the Paramatma, what's the name? Avigyata. Vigya from knowledge, and Avigyata, the unknown. Avigyata, the unknown friend in the heart. And that's the other amazing thing when we look at reincarnation. For so many lifetimes we have turned our face away from Krishna, and Krishna has always been at our side. I mean, imagine that. Like, we have gone through so many different experiences. So we have played so many different roles, so many dramas, so many ups and downs. And Krishna has always been at our side, very close. And he's doing that with every single individual. And it's amazing. That's why also, Prabhupada often said, you say God is great, but the Vedas explain you how great he is. And that's important. We need to know. We need to know Krishna. Otherwise, how can we enter a relationship with him? Right? If man and woman come together, there's some attraction, that they decide to enter a relationship, and what do they do then? They want to get to know each other, right? They want to know each other deeply, and then the more they know each other, then the more they develop their relationship. So similarly with Krishna, we need to know who Krishna is, and this kind of meditation, that Krishna is a person who has a personal relationship with every individual. For time immemorial, he's accompanying every soul, and is caring for that soul, and is there. So he's really a true friend. That's why Prabhupada said he's the only friend. I mean, Prabhupada would sign your well-wishing friend, right? Because the spiritual master is the representative of the super soul of Krishna. But at other times, Prabhupada said, actually, I'm not your friend. Prabhupada made that statement, I'm not your friend. Quite strong statement of Prabhupada. Prabhupada, I'm not your friend. The only friend is Krishna. Of course, the Guru is also a friend in the sense that he is, as we said, representative, and that relationship with Guru is also eternal. In that sense, the Guru is also a friend, of course, because it's eternal relationship that we have. But Prabhupada wanted to make the point that it's Krishna, that relationship we have to develop with Krishna. And he is our only true wishing friend. And therefore, we should, reflect on these points, because reincarnation we have heard so many times. But how much have we really absorbed and understood it? And what can we do to understand it more deeply? And then how will it change our lives if we actually understand it? And then what is the consequence? What is our priority if we really understand it? So in that sense, we are all Puranjana. We are trying to enjoy in these bodies, and we have a very old story, and we are chewing the jute again and again. And hopefully, in this life, we will, do something differently, right? So many lifetimes we did mistakes, so this time we should do it differently. Confirmed. Okay, Hare Krishna. Any comments, some realizations, doubts, questions? Yes. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Krishna Premarupa Prabhu. You made the point at the end that Srila Prabhupada said at one point, I'm not your friend, but Krishna is your friend. So my question is, we say often that Guru is actually more merciful than Krishna. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as I said, like when Prabhupada says, I'm not your friend, this is not an absolute statement. It's one of these statements just to trigger something or to, make a point, to emphasize how Krishna is the eternal friend and to encourage devotees to develop their relation with Krishna. And of course, from another point of view, certainly the Guru is very close and very dear. And that relationship is also eternal. We already mentioned that. So now your point is that Guru is more merciful, right, than Krishna. Yeah, that's interesting because how can we be more merciful than Paramatma or Krishna, who is there with you for so many lifetimes, always with you? So he's very merciful. Well, more merciful, as far as I understand, in that sense that although Krishna as a super soul, as Paramatma, is with us in every life, but Krishna is not personally coming in front of us. But because Krishna from within, as a Paramatma, he tries to encourage us. Go in this direction, do that. Go to the Hare Krishna temple. Visit the devotees. But Krishna tries to, from inside, he tries to give us inspiration. But the problem is that often we don't hear that voice. No, the mind is louder, and the super soul Paramatma. We don't listen to the super soul, or we maybe hear, but we ignore the voice. And I'm sure all of us have to make this experience. There is a clear, we hear some prompting, some indication, and then afterwards we react. Oh, why didn't I listen? No, I already knew. I had some indication from inside, but I didn't listen to it. Right? We all had this, right? So the Paramatma feels a bit frustrated, we can say. I'm always telling, but he's never listening. So I have to do something about it. So then Paramatma assumes a form as the spiritual master, as sadhu. And then from outside he tells the same thing. The same thing that Paramatma tells from inside, then Paramatma from outside in the form of sadhu tells from outside. And because we are, for us it's easier to hear Paramatma from outside in the form of sadhu, then that sadhu in a sense is even more merciful. It's like the next step, it's like, and also that's why the Guru is also called Shri Krishna Premurti. If Krishna gives his mercy to a conditioned soul, then he gives that mercy in the form of Guru. That's how Krishna gives mercy. Yes, it's Krishna who gives the mercy, but how does he give it? He gives it in the form of Guru. And in that sense, that Guru is the personification of Krishna's mercy. And and also Paramatma is neutral or maybe more distant, and as we also heard the other day, that the sadhus or devotees, even though Krishna says we shouldn't disturb the innocent, sadhus or devotees, they even disturb the innocent people because they're so merciful. Their heart is bleeding. They want to give to others, and then they're trying. Their compassion is, that's the quality of a Vaishnava. Compassion is so great that they want to give. I guess that's some thoughts. We could say more, but I think the daily.
But we need translation.
Monokelikan.
So we are like Krishna. If we take his 64 qualities as 100%, we have only 78% of qualities.
Как у нас могла появиться зависть, если мы по его подобию? Получается, у Господа
How can we obtain envy if we are like Krishna?
и притом мы там тоже совершенно, мы же знаем, что такое материальный мир.
We know what is material world, how we can obtain desire to go to material world. How can we get here if we understand what is this material world? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Due to some historical history, or how we say historical events in our institution, we are not allowed to talk about this topic on the Vyasa-san. Because the GBC, the ultimate managerial authority, took a vote on tattva, which is in itself very controversial. Like in the church, they had the concile and they make dogmas. This is how it is. And and this was done in our institution as well. And that's why we can only speak in that line, even if we have personal different opinion. And since that the fact, we won't comment on on the fall down of the jiva. How was it that the jiva failed into the material world? Did the jiva come from the spiritual world, playing with Krishna, and one day decide, I want to go to the material world? Or did the jiva come from a different Tatashta area, from Mahavishnu? Yes. Prabhupada said, if the house is on fire, you make sure you get out. And you don't start to contemplate, how did the fire start? Where did it start? Who burned the candle, or something like that? In a place where I lived, after I moved out and entered the temple, the house burned down. My friend always put candle everywhere, in every room, burned down. Huh?
He wasn't burned?
Yeah. He survived. He ended in a hospital, but he survived. But yeah, if that happens, you don't, you get out of the house. So similarly, as conditioned souls, we never fully understand that tattva. But to be fair, in a past, different acharyas gave different explanation, and that's no contradiction in Vaishnava philosophy. There can be different understanding without much contradiction. It's just different points of view. And Prabhupada presented a particular point. Actually, Prabhupada also referred to both sides, but he emphasized back home, back to Godhead. That was Prabhupada's main emphasis. Back home, back to God, it means we were there, we came here, and we go back. And that's how we leave it. There might be some fine-tuning in the understanding, but yeah. I think I already said too much. Shouldn't have. Yeah, I should be very careful about this.
This is not going to take.
And this is also recorded, my God.
This is already 4 minutes over. This
On YouTube it goes on Saturday.
I think 59 minutes more, so it's not.
Is it still that after half it just cuts off?
Yeah. Only if the issues.
No comment on that point. Okay, good. Then I think we'll end here. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. No, once in Germany at the Jahresversammlung with the leaders, that topic came up. I also spoke. Afterwards, oh my God, I shouldn't speak.